Hi, for my final presentation, I will be covering environmental justice in the urban core of America, climate change, greenhouse gas, and drinking water quality. My name is Keith Slider. Environmental justice, as defined by the Environmental Protection Agency, is the equal treatment and meaningful involvement of all people, regardless of race, color, national origin, or income, with respect to the development, implementation, and enforcement of environmental laws, regulations, and policies. Now, environmental justice is problematic, especially as it relates to the environmental approach for greenhouse gases, and cannot be changed with just environmental policies. There are still people who make daily decisions concerning how our environmental issues are addressed. Everything from regulations and enforcement are mostly regulated based on racism. These concerns require a multifaceted approach and a complete change in the mindset of our nation, especially as it relates to the environmental core. Some of the causes of the environmental problems within in the urban core are old abandoned facilities, industrial facilities without mandated environmental upgrades, industrial facilities with select enforcement, underfunded remediation projects, and stalled out or completely stalled out remediation projects. Some of the ethical values which we will address and ethical value conflicts are the utilitarian value approach versus the egalitarian approach. Utilitarianism, finding the greater good for the greatest number of people, and egalitarian, seeking equality for all, including the disadvantaged. Now, Kaswan's approach is one approach that is very interesting. It deals with both the free markets versus the free justice approach, and it seems to lean more toward the free market. If you see the picture on the side, I indicate that as one step at a time because I think we have to take one step at a time, and Kaswan's approach is a good way of doing that. Kaswan's approach talks about the market-based system, and it says, in contrast, market-based systems seek to achieve the greatest good for the greatest number by allowing society to achieve a given level of pollution reduction at a lower cost. To achieve such economic efficiency for some means ignoring distributional consequences or distributive justice. From an ethical policy standpoint, Kaswan underscores the conflict between those two ethical groups, finding the greater good and seeking equality for all. Kaswan's strategy is a multifaceted approach that includes combining a cap and trade program with direct regulations, imposing limitations to maximize coal pollutant reductions using auction revenue to further distributive justice and public accountability. Some of the environmental justice implication based on this approach is unresolved exposure to contaminated sites, greenhouse gases due to poorly enforced emissions and regulations. Some of the disadvantages are related mostly to the cap and trade position of her strategy. Cap and trade is not always easy to administer. Racial equity is still a concern. The need for real emissions reduction is still a concern. And poor enforcement regulations is still a concern. In conclusion, environmental justice is problematic, especially as it relates to the environmental approach for greenhouse gases, and cannot be changed with just environmental policies. There are still people who make daily decisions concerning environmental issues, including regulations and enforcement, that ignore environmental justice concerns and justify their negligence, all due to racism. So the human element is also a factor that must be re-engineered to address environmental justice issues. Questions?